I don't know what the chances of artists succeeding are, but it does seem pretty low. Like the idea that you're gonna actually make money doing music or whatever.
Do you believe that?
Yeah, I do believe it on some level. It is really difficult.
Are you hopeful for the future?
I don't feel super hopeful of being successful in music, to be honest. Maybe I'm just too aware of all the barriers. And yeah, I like to kind of simplify where I don't really have to think about that anymore. Meaning, I like do it, be involved. If something happens, if it is successful, it's successful. But at least I was involved. At least I was making things. I was trying. You know, I think that's the important thing right now. I don't think 10 years ago I would have said that. I would have been like, oh, if I'm not successful, like, it really got me down, you know, when things weren't working out on some level. So it's sort of the maturation. Maybe I've become a little too isolated. So I'm trying to move away from that. I want a little more hope. Let's get a little more hope would be nice. Like, it's like I was watching The Shawshank Redemption the other day, and like there's a conversation about hope in that movie. And it's like one person's like, well, hope is terrible because it, you know, when you hope for something, it doesn't come, and you just feel bitter, you know, bitter and hateful. And the other guy's like, well, but a little bit of hope, it keeps you going, you know. You know, having hope for something is beautiful, you know, as long as you don't let it turn into bitterness and resentment and all those things. And so, having just enough hope to like feel like you can move forward towards something, even if it's far off, even if it seems impossible. That's part of life, you know. Yeah, it's sometimes the fear of making contact, it's hard to work with other artists because there's a lot more emotions that go into it, you know, the interpersonal relationships. And it can be a little more hurtful, you know, if someone, you know, get rejected or like, you know, someone doesn't want to work with you or the project doesn't work out. I mean, I've had several bands that, you know, I was excited about and someone bailed, you know, on the process and I felt like we were going somewhere. It's hard to swallow sometimes. And I think on some level with my work, I found it was easier just to work alone. Just because like, no one's stopping me from making what I want. I don't have to rely on other people, their schedules, figuring it all out. And so it's just easier on some level, but also they're probably less fruitful on some other levels. You know, getting other people's creative input, getting their ideas. Just the creativity that comes from playing with someone. So, I think on some level I'm really tired of just being alone doing it. So I'm in kind of a lull. I don't feel super inspired about it right now. I know it'll come back. It always kind of ebbs and flows. So maybe kind of this period where I'm just sort of, you know, not waiting around, but sort of conceptualizing some things in my head. And kind of waiting for the next inspiration to strike.
You're almost pragmatic to a fault. I don't think the greats in any artistic field ever really were extremely realistic. I think they just said, I just love doing this fucking thing and I'm going to do it as it comes out of my pores. And through that, they find success. And that word success is an interesting one too. It's like, what does that even mean to you? And I do think there's something to the idea of if you think it's probably not going to happen, it won't, or probably won't. And if you think it will happen, better chance of it happening. I think just because of what energy you're putting out in conversations and meetings and even in your work, it's going to, I think, somehow subconsciously be heard or be permeated that I don't have and I won't have. I think it's going to be sensed or felt?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm undecided on that. I mean, I think it is good to have some positive energy towards it. I don't know if it necessarily is like a subconscious, like if that is sensed or not. Art, to me, is often a means of communication. You pull from something inside, something that can be communicated with words, and translate it through your medium. The crux of being an artist is not only to understand this internal maelstrom, but to somehow transcribe it for others. It is so easy to get lost in your own ideas, stuck on your island with no other land in sight. We sense as artists that others are attempting to do the same, that we are trying to communicate across the divide. The cloud of unknowing separates us. Fear permeates the air. The idea that our art will never be understood begins to spread through our bodies. Eventually, it seems like the island is all that is, and everything else is just a distant dream. How do we bridge the divide? How do we lift the fog and find life in the flowering desert?
I've been moving in the Milky Way. I've been riding in the bar, but that's not who I am.